Hi, Mark here from the Tangibound Podcast Network and host of the flagship show, the Tangibound Podcast. Did you know that we over at Tangibound are always looking for amazing podcasts to promote? And did you also know that we are also proud nerds and geeks of everything from movies, music, gaming, TV shows, and comic books to wrestling, MMA, soccer, and football? Whatever you can nerd or geek out about, we've got it. And if you're interested, we can help you find it. And if you're a show looking for a place to call home, we've got you covered. Side effects may include upset stomach, dizziness, tumors, shakes, and in some rare cases, death from excessive laughter. Though to be fair, it's only sometimes. Other side effects may include diarrhea, gallstones, heart palpitations, and strong desire for cookies on the dark side. Talk to your doctor and visit TangiboundNetwork.com and see if Tangibound Network is right for you.
Hey, it's Brian.
And it's Tony.
From the Salty Language Podcast. We're a podcast with two friends that have, been around each other for like 70 years or something. And, we talk about kind of everything.
We're like a married couple that you hate.
Yeah, basically something like that. No, we talk about, just weird news, stuff that happens in our life, pop culture, really anything. It's, we just have a nice conversation and make up stuff along the way. So, yeah. And I guess, you can find us at saltylanguage.com.
For sure.
And
beer you'll be fine.
Well, also you can find us on dangerentertainment.net.
Danger! Watch your back! Danger!
Entertainment.net in case you missed it the first time. We're not doctors, therapists, trained professionals of any kind. So if you feel you do need help, please reach out and get the help you need. We have a whole list of things on our files page over on Facebook at facebook.com/crazylifepodcast. And, or just search on the internet for the suicide prevention hotline number, or, go to NAMI.org or, whatever resource you can find. But just please reach out for help if you need it. If you feel as though you're going to harm yourself or others, definitely reach out and try not to be alone. Also, if you, feel that way and you realize that you're writing a note or making plans of how you would do, like harm yourself or others, definitely reach out. That's a huge red flag. And lastly, please do not replace the idea of therapy with listening to this show. Again, if you need help, please reach out and get the help that you need, or contact us. We can try to help you find the help that you need.
Life sucks to the last drop. Are you gonna blow your head off? Take good aim and don't forget to duck. Life sucks every Monday and all the way to Sunday, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't care how you're doing, what's up or how's it hanging. I'd like to buy this world one last drink. Life sucks all of the time. Stick it up your sunshine, and then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day.
Welcome to another episode of The Crazy Life. I'm Brian. Joining me as usual is Heno.
Howdy.
And not joining us as usual is Jen. I'm not gonna say, what's going on, but
are you gonna out her? No,
nah,
you're not. No,
nah. I mean, listen, any of us could have had too much whiskey and couldn't do the podcast. So,
Yeah, I mean that could happen. Allegedly,
right?
That allegedly could happen to somebody.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is in the realm of possibilities.
Yeah. Oddly enough, you'd think of the three of us, if it was going to happen to somebody, I would be the most likely candidate. Nope.
It's true.
I know
not anymore.
I know when to say when. That's what, no. I'm kidding. It happens. And also, after this last weekend, I can't say anything about anyone drinking too much because I drank entirely too much this weekend too.
Oh, did you know?
It's interesting because, first of all, you know, we've talked on here before about how if I do something social like Friday, then Saturday, then Sunday, I'm just like, nope. And I am at that point today. Like, I got invited to go to a Super Bowl party at a friend's house, and it's just like, nah, I just don't have it in me for like a group. Even if it's not a very big group, it's still just, you know, not going to happen today. But then on top of that, you know, when you bundle that with having some alcohol, which kind of minimizes the effectiveness of your medicine a little bit. So you kind of feel it a little bit more. And, which is why I usually, if we go out or whatever, I'll usually have one or two and then that's it. Cause I found like with that, I'm pretty good. Like it doesn't seem to affect me. And, you know, last couple nights I may have had a couple more than that. And, I was feeling it a little bit last night. Like I got home and I ate cause I like to carb load after drinking cause it helps my stomach not feel queasy. But then later I was like, man, I feel weird. Like, you know, and, you know, and every time something like that happens, it's so rare now because I really don't do this much, but it's like when it does happen, it really brings back the, is it worth it thing, you know, like especially as I get older because it's harder, you know,
Yep.
Because 1 day hangovers are now 2 days, even though it's not like full on hangover, it's still, you're running on lower energy or whatever, but, yeah. So, and that, you know, that was not my intention. I wasn't going out to like get drunk or anything because I don't do that anymore. I really don't. Because it's just not smart. And it's not fun either. Might be fun for a little bit while you're doing it, but that whole afterwards part is, you know, sitting up all night nauseous because your body can't decide if it's gonna get sick or it's not gonna get sick. And, you know, you get a headache the next day, you're feeling meh, you know, cause you slept like garbage. It's just, you know, it's a whole different beast now. So, yeah, I don't recommend doing this, kids.
My neighbor, we're literally like a day apart in age.
Mm-hmm.
And he was working on our, he's a painter and he was working for a contractor on our property, last summer. And, you know, it's just, sometimes it's easier. Just, he has his own, you know, has his own painting company, but sometimes it's easier to just jump onto a crew, you know, and just bust stuff out. And, it was like kind of cool to see him, but I guess he was like, you know, not quite following the rules of the guy that runs the show. And it kind of came to blows maybe. Like, I'm not sure exactly what happened, but you know, heard that and so he was no longer working for him. And then my coworker saw him on another neighboring property and he'd made some like signal for like, yeah, we're up here doing a fucking blow.
Oh boy.
Like, whoa, wait a minute. like on ladders.
Sure. Why not?
Like, you know, and then,
Jeez.
and then evidently he fell off of one and like broke his arm, cracked some ribs and something else. So, you know, I was hearing this all, you know, I don't know how it came, that's what it was. I went skiing with my coworker on Fridays, taking Fridays off now. And so we're going up the lift and he's telling me all about this. And I'm like, okay, you just listed 3 things at my age that I want to have nothing to do with. One of them being getting into fistfights with my employer.
Yeah.
2, doing cocaine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Not that it wouldn't be fun, but the next day, ooh.
Oh, yeah.
And 3, falling off ladders and breaking bones.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, dude, maybe it's time to rethink some things.
Yeah. Right.
And it really amazes me because I look at it and I'm like, we're literally a day apart. We're a day apart and our lives couldn't be any more different.
Yeah.
And it's just like, hey, you know, more power to you, dude. Whatever gets you through life, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I've met his daughters. They are amazing. I mean, they are so like, they have been brought up so well. They're so polite. And I look at him and I'm just like, wow. It just made me laugh because you just made me think about that too. Because it's just like, I talk about it all the time where it's like, there's just certain drugs that it was like, they were really fun, but then you play out the tape and think about the next day and it's like, oh yeah, right. Oh, nobody wants that feeling.
Well, and that's what's funny is it's like, that's a lot of it is like when you're younger, that's like, whatever. Who cares? I'll be hungover tomorrow.
The fun is more, yeah.
Whereas now, like I said, it's like those ones that used to be that one day hangover. It's like, I'm going to spend 2 days before I'm back to full strength now. And it's like, yeah, that's not fun. 1 day of fun for 2 days of bleh is not, that's not good math. That's a bad return on investment.
Good math.
So, yeah.
It wasn't a solid investment.
It was not, yeah. I mean, I didn't get, I didn't get, plowed or anything. I mean, I was buzzing pretty good. No. That's about as far as I went. But it was still the idea that it's like, I'm, like I said, I slept like garbage and, which who knows, that could have been something else too, but probably not. It's, it's probably, because you don't really get into a restful sleep,
yeah, that's it
as much. So it's probably that. And it's like, I know I shouldn't be doing it anyway, but in my head, I'm always like, I never do this, like it's so rare. And then the next day I'm like, talking to myself, like, you really got to stop talking yourself into this.
That's too funny.
Yeah. So, I mean, we had a good time and everything, and not because of the drink and stuff. Like the first
Sounds
place,
like it.
Yeah, last night the first place we went to had what they call Singo, which is it's bingo. Like you get a card with a bunch of song titles on it, and then they just have a thing that plays songs, and you mark it off.
Oh, that's fun.
So it was a little weird because there was no they didn't talk in between songs or anything. It was just like a playlist basically. And then, when someone yells out bingo, then they stop it and whatever. And they did 1 line, 2 line, cover all, and we stayed for 2 rounds of that. They were doing another one 15 minutes after that, but we were leaving. So, but it was kind of fun as we were just randomly talking. It's something else to kind of do while you're there and it's kind of minimal investment, it was free, but time wise, you can just be talking and everybody can kind of look at the card and see if the song's on there or whatever, So yeah, that was fun. Then we went to a place that, a friend of ours was running the karaoke. And, that's always interesting because you just never know what you're going to get with karaoke. So.
Oh yeah.
They had a few people that were pretty good. The sound system or something is a little, or it's the people. I'm not sure what, but there was a level of distortion. And I don't know if it's because they were singing too loud and just, it wasn't set for that to handle it or, whatever it was. But it's almost like if we're doing this and I just kind of yell and it blows the soundboard kind of situation. Yeah. That's what it reminds you of. But, and then there were a couple people that were not good, but whatever. More power to them for getting out there and doing it. I mean, because to walk up on a stage and I mean, if you're not good, but you're still like, I'm going to get up there and do it anyway. I don't even care, that's pretty awesome. Yeah. That's freeing. I couldn't do that, so, I mean, I would have had to have way more alcohol in me to do that. Then maybe, but even then, probably not. I just don't move much generally as I drink. I become a stump.
That's funny.
I do. I hit a certain point where I'm like, this is where I live now, and I need someone to bring me more. I'm just gonna sit here the rest of the night, except for going to the bathroom. That was fun. But the night before, I hung out with Tony and we did, recorded Salty Language. And we actually recorded a little something extra. And then he was showing me a video game and then he was nodding out while I was playing it. So that was, But that was fun. We had a really good time. It was
Sleepy time, Tony.
dude, it was. He's telling me how to play the game, and next thing I know, he's just leaning forward with his head just dipping, so it happens. But, like I said, overall it was a good time and whatever, so, yeah. But it does really feed into the, into the anxiety. And, it's really weird. Like, my anxiety's been still running, and I actually think it's been kind of higher lately, which is weird. Usually when it gets really cold, I'm not as anxious. It's usually the warmer it gets, the more anxious I get, which makes sense. But, I've just still been feeling anxious, and I don't know. It's just, I don't know if it's one of those, whatever you believe in, if, you get like a positive or a negative energy kind of vibe or what, it's like, I'm just feeling something kind of like that. Like something's off, whether it's a good or bad off, I don't know yet, but something doesn't quite feel right. So we'll see, a week from now when I'm like, see, this is exactly what, no, or I'll just be like, yeah, nothing happened. That's probably more likely. So how about you? How was your week?
Speaking of anxiety, I got to experience quite a bit too with Jack's having surgery.
Sure. I'm not going to lie.
Interesting experience.
I had some anxiety from that too. Yeah, because I know how much, he means to you and everything. Plus, I wouldn't, I don't want anything to happen to him, but I know he's important to you and stuff. So I was, a little nervous, but until I saw your Facebook post of him post surgery, and I was like, oh, awesome. Yeah, that's him.
Well, that was the weird thing. So I bring him in, and I honestly thought he was going in to have his lump removed, and they were going to take some x-rays and see what needed to be done. Mm-hmm. And in the process of sitting down with the vet, it's like he's showing me all the procedures and everything. And by the time I was walking, and then he gives me a price, and I'm like, eesh.
Mm-hmm, I'm like, sure. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And as I was leaving, I'm like, I think they're doing it.
Uh-oh.
And which was fine.
Yeah.
It was like, because the process of the conversation, I was like, okay, this has to be done.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It was like this, we have to do this. Like, it's like, he basically said, as I'm sure it's not going to get any better. Mm-hmm. And, and chances are the other, one's going to go. And he showed exactly what was going on. I'm like, okay, yep, that's exactly what's going on. They had a cool little like mock up, where it shows where, the no CCL, if he, when he puts his toe down, the whole joint moves, and this is what we do. Like, seriously, you got the, the ball at the top of your tibia, and they literally cut the ball in half. They take a circular saw and just, and then they rotate it a little bit so that now the joint can't slip forward, because they're just basically it's locked in.
Okay.
And so there's no longer a need for that ligament anymore, because the ligament is what keeps it from that joint sliding forward.
Okay.
Well, they rotate the ball and then put it in that plate, that I posted the x-rays up. And I was like, okay, wow, the whole thing, it all made a lot of sense, went through the whole thing. But here's the thing, when Jax had his teeth removed last year, when I went and picked him up, he was a mess. Yeah. I mean, he was a mess. And like, he was just out of it for so long. So I'm figuring he's going to be really out of it. He wasn't going to be until like 5:30. Oh, and the vet told me they average about 16 of these surgeries a week.
Wow.
They're like a full-on assembly line, and people come from all over the country.
Well, it's funny. We were talking about that with when Jim had his open heart. When I think I mentioned it on here actually, about like, instead of going to a specialist, like the place we were, it's like the guy was like, we do these all the time.
Yeah.
He's like, we've got it down pat, like no question.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's like an assembly line. You just keep firing them out of here. And when you think about it, it's like, that's what you want. You want a place that does them a lot because they've dealt with, good, bad, all the, they're going to probably be more prepared.
Oh yeah.
So
that's
cool.
Oh, and it was they're all of their documentation, when I went in, I pay the bill, $3,000, well, just under.
Oof.
And I noticed that so that's the procedure. And then they took care of the lump and cleaned his teeth for free, which I'm like, thank you. That's the least you could do,
right? Yeah.
Like, I very much appreciated that part of it. Cause that would have, cause I was at one point, I'm like, man, if it's, cause he said $2,900, I'm like, if it's $2,900 and then I have to pay for the lump and them scraping his teeth off, I was like, okay, I felt really, I was like, this is good. But they gave me the documentation for what, his care, and I'm reading through it, and it was so well detailed because they do it all the time.
Yep.
And it was all laid out. I'm like, okay, and I felt good. So I get in the back, and the vet tech is going through all the post-op stuff.
Yeah.
Going through everything, and I'm starting to get like really nervous because, like I said, he was really messed up when he had the teeth pulled.
Mm-hmm.
She opens the door, walks him in on a leash. He's like boing, 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 boing on his 3 legs, sees me, gets so excited, like there was nothing wrong. I was like, oh, thank goodness. So I get him home and I'm reading it, the instructions is like, okay, 2 weeks restricted, serious. He just jumps right on the couch, and now I'm freaking out because I'm like, I want to be, I want to do it right. I don't want him to get hurt or anything. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, what do I do about getting him on the bed? Because I got these little mini ottomans and storage things and little chests in various places for them to jump up on things that they like to go on. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, he can't, if he sees a squirrel, he'll go running towards the door and and Sharon comes over. She's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I just need a moment. And I'm like really freaking out. Yeah. And so finally I just realized that he's going to do what he's going to do. I just need to make sure that he doesn't do anything in a way that's where he can hurt himself. And so one of the things was that Sharon's dog sitting at a place right now, and he can't. So that means he has to go to work with me. Well, that first day he was still really needy. Mm-hmm. And I he used to come to work with me and be in the car. Well, I set up the car, and every time I go out there, he'd be just super whiny. And I just carried that with me all day long. And then of course I didn't sleep well that first night. And so I'm a little bit tired. And then the next day again, next night I don't sleep really well because I'm just, does he need to go out? Blah, blah, this and that. What's he doing? And, the cone ended up being useless. And, I wrap his leg and now he's like, I don't want to have this wrap on me. So I'm going to so I'm barely sleeping. And then the next day I had the same thing again. I just carried this anxiety with me. Oh, wow. Now it was better the next day. Like he wasn't whining, when I'd go, put him in and out of the car. But I just had this, this is my one place where I still, it's my codependency. Mm-hmm. I carry somebody else's, and in this case, my dog's thing or whatever it is. And it was really noticeable. I was really fatigued by the end of the second day because of what was going on. Not in my head. It wasn't that I was thinking anything, and I wasn't like worried. I was just carrying this emotion with me. It was bizarre to me.
I assume that it's, neither of us have kids, but I would assume that it's very much like a parent having to go to work when their kid's sick. Like feeling guilt, and just carrying it with them. I couldn't
imagine. This is just a dog. I couldn't imagine if you had a child. I was telling Dave, the drummer, today that I'm like, because he's got a couple of grown kids. I'm like, I can't even imagine what you guys went, what it'd be like.
Yeah.
I carried all this emotion, what it must be like for to have a an ill child or you know, that kind of thing. And so I just it was just interesting because anytime and then it comes back to the lessons that we talk about on here. Okay, this is normal. This is how you're going to feel. It's not permanent. It's just temporary. It's going to pass. And sure enough, by day 3, he was touching doing toe touches and all that stuff. And it was no big deal to leave him in the car. He was actually kind of happy to go back into the car, you know, after having lunch with me, and it was kind of fun and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And the thing is, you know, for 2 months, he can't really run and I'm going to go home and at the end of the month. And so she take care of him, but I know everything's going to be fine. You know, it's amazing how quickly he's already recovered.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing. But it was just a fascinating thing. And then the other
could
part
be
of
too
it is,
that like, you know, like some surgeries after you have them, you just feel better because the thing that's been like nagging you is cleared up, you know, or cleaned up or whatever, you know? So maybe his leg feels better.
Yeah, he's obvious.
You know?
Yeah, he's putting his toe down and it's not moving.
Yeah.
You know, he's not ready to put a lot of weight on it, but
Sure.
yeah, it's not moving and
Yeah.
Which is just a trip.
Yeah, right.
But the other part of this is I have because of the new tax law and everything like that, I had no idea what was going to happen with holdings for my paychecks.
Oh, right.
And at one point, Sharon does their bookkeeper. She does various things, part of doing bookkeeping. And she was noticing that she wasn't having money taken out of her state taxes like it should be. And so I went and talked to her. I did a whole, anyhow, I did some like quick put everything into into TurboTax Online. And I was like, oh, Lordy, wow. Okay. That's a lot of money.
Oh, boy.
Like, you know, so I go to our bookkeeper when she was there and I'm like, I need to change my withholding. And she looks it up. And because I filled one out last year, I changed my withholdings last year because I wanted to make sure enough was taken out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's only one person that enters it and it was entered wrong.
Oh.
And there's nothing I could do about it, but my state was different than the federal. She showed me on the screen and I'm just like, that's not what I fell last year. And I talked to a friend of mine that says they can't be different, have to be the same.
Yeah.
And I was like, and so I was like, oh, okay, well, there's nothing I can do about it now. Just, you know, let's make, and she did the adjustments right in front of me. I changed everything. So next year should be better. Oh, and that was the other thing is like, I'm going to look at, my withholding on a check comparable and see, and just make sure that, one from this year and last year line up. But one of the things she said is that I guess Idaho didn't get stuff from the federal government until almost the end of the year. They sent out notices to ADP in October saying that state withholdings were going to be messed.
Oh, wow.
At which point there's nothing you can do about it. And ADP didn't exactly, send out a mass notice to everybody. And so the only reason that, Kathy just happens to really keep track of this stuff, she noticed it or heard about it. And so I was like, okay, well, that's why Sharon didn't get her stuff. That's why Sharon's was off, everything like that. And then, but long story short here is it's like, okay, we're going to have to pay a lot of money.
Yeah.
And it's fine. We had a really good discussion about it. Again, very happy that we've been doing the work that we've been doing financially. Again, communication is the best thing in the world.
Yep.
Not, getting emotional. We had an honest conversation about what's going on, why it is the way it is, and we're going to do it together. And we're going to get through it. Came up with a plan. It's great. But by the time I looked at, $3,000 for Jax, it's probably going to be about $3,000 to various tax sources. And I got to pay the rest of Jamaica. I'm like, this is a $10,000 year.
Yep.
And you know what I'm doing? I'm going back to my power word. I'm just going to have fun.
Yeah. I'm
not going to let it this year. I'm not. And one of the things I'm doing is I have, there's bills to pay. I'm not going to have this debt paid off that, I brought up a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
everything's going to get paid for. Everything's going to get taken. If I end up, having to, fall a little, tap into my, home equity loan a little bit or whatever, anything that I do, it's all okay because it's taken care of. There's no, I'm not going to carry it with me emotionally. I'm not bringing it into my relationship. It's just money. It's just life. And in a couple of years, I won't even think about it. I'll guarantee by the end of the year, even think about it.
Yeah.
It won't matter.
Right. And like you said, I mean, you look at what it is. It's like you've done all you can really do at this point with it. You can't go back and, turn things so that you have plenty of money taken out. That ship's already gone, So all you can do is, like you said, you make sure for next year that it's set the way you wanted it to be set. And that's it. I mean, it's just,
And a friend of mine, I got a chance to talk to a friend of mine who also does some bookkeeping stuff. And one of the things is we're getting a penalty for Affordable Care Act stuff. And which, that one upset me a little bit because it's like it's an avoidable thing. But it was great. Here I go. Another thing that we talk about all the time is go talk to people. You never know what you're going to find from somebody. Well, here I am talking to my friend Rachel about it. And she says, well, if you really think about it, how much would it have cost you if you'd have put her on your insurance immediately? I'm like, well, it would have been about $300 a month. She's like, okay, 10 months. That's $3,000. What's your penalty going to be? About $1,500. Okay. It was a better deal to not pay the insurance and take the penalty.
Fortunately, yes.
Right? And I was like,
yeah.
If we weren't married, Sharon would have only paid $700 in fees. But my income screws it up, right?
Sure.
But even then, talking to a friend, she even put that into perspective and said, okay, let's say you together did this. And I was like, okay, that's helpful. It, again, reframing whatever it takes to get myself back in, to be out of anxiety, to be out of fear, to be, to be in this place. And that's where I'm at. And it feels really good. And so I was going to have somebody else do all of our taxes. But once I got a grip on all the penalties and fees, I'm like, I can do this myself. I've done it for the last 5 years, with business stuff and all this stuff. And they were having a great deal on TurboTax download on Amazon. And so I got it and I'm going to do it ourselves and everything's going to work out. And it just feels good to be able to apply everything that we talk about here in my daily life and have it actually work.
Yeah.
And it just makes me more grateful for, this is why this is why I stay sober. This is why I do this podcast every week. This is why I want to maintain this toolkit that I've been given because it works. So those are to me, those are like, they're all wins, right?
Yeah.
Every single one of them's a win for me. So,
and it's interesting because
it makes me feel good.
All those scenarios you just named and how you're looking at them as a win, those are, like how anyone will tell you, kind of like, choose to be this or choose to be happy, choose to be miserable. It's like, this is a perfect example of where you got to choose. Because you chose to see it or choose to see it as a positive. You could just as easily looked at this and just, fell down on the ground and kicked and screamed and why is this always happening to me, and gone that way. And
that's it.
It wouldn't have done anything. This way you got things done. You got a plan, which by having all that stuff gives you some comfort, which will allow you to, like you said, just have fun. Because you're not going to be sweating this the whole year, Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And it's not worth it. And it's so great to be able to have that ability to choose because I didn't have it before. It's exactly what you said. I would have dove into it. I would have wallowed in it. I would have been bitter about it. I would have blamed other people about it. I would have made it worse.
Yeah. And all the positive stuff you've done sets you up for this too. you know, because you've made the progress that you have on your bills and all this other stuff. You know, had this same thing happened to you 2 years ago, you would have been in a bad way, essentially, or felt like you were, whether you were or not, you know. You would have probably felt more overwhelmed by it. You know,
you just brought up something that a friend of mine, when, you know, a bunch of years ago, before I got into really doing some work on my debt and that kind of stuff, I sat down with a friend and I was beating myself up because my only avenue out was to liquidate my retirement and just get this debt out of the way. Yeah. And cause I had to do it. And Mary Beth reminded me, she's like, you have that retirement. You should be proud that you set aside money. And yes, it was for something else, but you have it. It's there for you. You have a way out of this because of, you know, those things. And it's like, oh yeah, that's a positive thing. Cause I'm just looking at it as just purely negative. You know, now I don't have this. Now I don't have that. It's like, no, turn it around, reframe that. You gave yourself the out. And that's how I'm looking at it right now too. Yeah. It's like all of this is going to work out. It's all, you know, it's all there because I have taken the steps and that kind of stuff. So
it's just a reorganization of your goal. You know, it's not a failure. It's not whatever. It's just, you've got to, you know, look at the strategy and change it a little bit because, you know, the rules change. So you got to change how you play. And that's it. Yeah.
Yep.
And that's good. It's good that you're not, you know, angry or ruminating or whatever, you know, over it. And I mean, even if, you know, and even if you did a little bit, that's normal stuff, you know, but at least you're not, you know, just completely like about it, you know?
Yeah.
So good.
How about you?
You know, it's funny you were talking about, you know, keeping your tools sharp or whatever it was. I don't remember which analogy you used, but good enough, right? I had to cancel on my therapy this past week because, you know, like my ride to it wasn't able to take me because it was so cold that morning. And I called to cancel. And again, I feel I'm in a position to where now I can miss therapy and it's not like, oh man, what am I going to do? You know, like I'm usually, I'm okay now. And, well, not okay. You know what I'm saying? Like I can deal with stuff in between.
Yeah.
You know, and I'll call and reschedule, but, when I called the doctor's office, the woman on the phone, they were there and they were having trouble with their computers that day. Like literally people were calling in like crazy because I think it was like 20 below that morning. And they were, so people are calling in left and right because the place I go to has a lot of senior, patrons. So they aren't going to want to get out in this or can't get out in this, whatever the term is, you know, and a lot of people don't, you know, who wants to take your kid out in that or just take yourself out in it, you know? And, the woman's like, oh, she's like, we've been getting calls all morning and she's like, I can't put them in the computer because it's down right now. So she's literally having to write down everybody's name, the doctor, you know, like all this stuff. So when the computers come back up, she can enter some of the information that she needs. I was like, oh, geez. You know, and I told her, I said, well, if you want to write my number down in the event that you need to ask me anything, you know, feel free to call me later or something. But, you know, I was like, well, I hope the computers come back on soon because it sucks when your whole job runs through, you know, a device and the device is down, you know, like, okay, what am I going to do? You know? So I kind of felt, you know, I felt bad for that, but yeah, I had to do that. Now what I'm looking at is I need to call and make 1, 2, 3 appointments now. So we'll see how long that takes me to, my goal is to do it tomorrow. And I need to because, you know, I have to go back and talk to the doctor about the, like, testosterone and whatever. So I have to schedule that. I have to go get blood work done before I go in to him. That way they can, you know, look at the numbers and whatnot. So I, you know, and then rescheduling therapy, which probably will be a good, You know, that'll probably be a good month or so away because of just how fast therapists usually book up.
Yeah.
But like I said, at least I feel like I'm in a place now that's kind of like, you know, your scenario where like the work you've put in allows you to not freak out now. You know, it allows you to cope better. And that's kind of where I'm at too, I think, is that it's like, I wasn't like, man, I can't believe I'm going to miss this. I mean, you know, I was like, this sucks. I really would like to go, but it's, you know, I will be okay, you know, kind of a thing. So I'm very,
it's like that idea of,
oh, I was just going to
What were you gonna say?
I'm very glad I'm at that point, you know, that I feel that,
yeah.
you know, the floor that therapy provided me, I don't have to have all the time. You know, like I can kind of catch myself now, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. That's that idea of that. It's like you've got something in the spiritual savings account, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know, that you've got that buffer now. Whereas if you, when you need, you know, like it's like comparing it to, you know, living paycheck to paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
And if something goes wrong, you're screwed.
Yep.
Versus, okay, I got a little extra in the bank account so that if something does go wrong, it's not going to crush me immediately. And that's just such a great place to be in because that's one of the things that I just got sick and that's what gets, if anything makes me sick and tired of being sick and tired, it's that.
Mm-hmm.
It's that feeling of that all it takes is one thing.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want that. I want to be able to handle a few things before I, you know, lose my mind.
Right. Yeah. Because like before
and
any little
breakdown.
Yeah. Right. It's like any little sidestep before I would have, you know, on like distorted thinking wise, you know, I would have blown it up into this is the worst, you know, like I'm a teenager, you know, this is the worst thing ever. Yep. And it's like, yeah, wait for a few years.
That's it.
But, you know,
that's so true.
But you know, it's kind of like that in a way that that's what I would have done. You know, even when I first started going to therapy, you know, there were a couple times I did have to cancel, and I remember I was like, man, I don't know, you know, kind of a situation to where, you know, like I said to you before, it's like, you know, I'm glad we do this because even like in this situation, I didn't get to go to therapy, but I still kind of feel like I get kind of that process. I get to talk to somebody.
Yeah, you get,
and I get to get that out of me and just kind of, and it's a safe place, you know, like I know this is, you know, so it helps to really just kind of get rid of that overwhelming feeling, you know, and even if it's not, you know, even if it wouldn't drop your overwhelmed feeling from 100 to like 60, if it's like, well, it drops it to like 80, that's still better than 100 and a win, you know? So
yeah, it's like that I no longer want my life to feel like I'm going from one catastrophe to another.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, I felt that way about my life for so long. That, I mean, I literally, you know, Jen's not here, but she knows firsthand that I was very much the type that I didn't celebrate something good happening because I expected something bad to follow it. If one bad thing happened, I pretty much was like, well, it started raining. When's it going to start pouring? Like, that's how down in it I was, is that I really was probably manifesting bad things, you know, and I don't mean stuff like my dad getting cancer, you know, obviously that's not what I'm saying, but you know, but it's still like I'm just not looking for anything good. I'm just only expecting bad, you know, and that's a terrible way to live. It sucks, you know, if anyone listening is feeling that way, as I've said countless times, you know, please seek some help. Because it's just, indifference and that feeling are the two worst things. You know, I've lost my dad. I've had a friend tragically, you know, killed way too young, all this kind of stuff. And it's like, that's still worse than dealing with those things, you know? Cause like, at least with those, I was like, well, I know how what I'm supposed to feel here and felt it, you know, like my dad died. I sobbed, you know, my good friend died. I cried a lot, you know, But then I get to a point that certain things that happen to me and I'm just like, okay. You know, and it wasn't like, all right, I got this. It was, of course, you know, like, you know, of course that happened to me, you know, and that's a terrible, terrible place to be.
Yeah, it really is. That's probably the greatest thing that I'm, you know, again, just grateful for, is not having that feeling of when something happens, it's like, oh, now what? You know, oh, of course, you know, where it's like, no, what's the next thing I need to do? And to be able to just face it in a way that it doesn't affect everything in my life and everyone in my life. I think that's the worst part, is that I mean, what a selfish way to live, where it's like, hi, I'm going to burden you with everything that's going wrong with me.
Yeah. Yep.
That's why I like to, you know, people say, wait, why don't you drink? I'm like, it's a public service thing.
That's fair. It is true, because that is one of those things too. That's another side of it, you know, that I'm sure anyone suffering from whatever it is feels, is you don't want to be a burden, you know? And a lot of times that's what ends up being one of the most dangerous things of depression, you know, because you're so afraid of being a burden that you just won't talk to anybody about it. And, you know, meanwhile, you got people that if they knew would be like, oh my God, what can I do? You know, like immediately, like, what can I do to help you kind of situation. But you just assume, or you've had someone that you thought would help you just basically go suck it up, you know, like, so you're just like, wow, if so-and-so won't help me, who is, you know? And, you know, but whatever. It's, I'm very glad that, that we're both kind of doing this. 'Cause again, it is fun on one hand that it, you know, if you picture us from a couple of years ago, I think you and I would have dealt with these things much worse. Especially me, because I think you were still in a little more positive mindset, of course, than I was, but I still was, you know.
But you know what? Mine was as an individual. Yeah. And now I'm doing things, you know, my relationship is really that's where I was lacking. Yeah. That's where I needed help. Yeah. I needed to learn how to do this with somebody else in my life. And even though I may have, you know, I learned to take care of a lot of stuff on my own, I hadn't learned to play well with others yet. In a lot of ways. And that's what I'm learning right now. And it's exciting. And it kind of actually, you know, the topic we have for tonight is kind of slides right into this stuff. Yep. If you're okay with me bringing it in. Yeah, go ahead. We're going to talk about, this is from Tiny Buddha. It's how to take back control from the negative script in your head. And, you know, I will put the link in the show notes, and it's definitely worth going through and reading. And we're just going to kind of, I just want to just kind of hop on some of the main points, because this is really what, a lot of what we're talking about tonight is about, just, you know, changing that narrative. And this person, they went to like a seminar, and it was brought up, they called it a script. They call it a broadband consciousness course, which I don't know what that means. Might be worth looking into.
Sounds like a bunch of hooey, but might not be.
Yeah, that's what that is. Bunch of snake oil, I'm telling you. But so they called it the script, and that, and the idea being is that the script keeps you from learning the real you. Mm-hmm. And what this person learned from the seminars, I learned a way of separating that negative voice in my head from the real me. Learned that the script is anything that doesn't serve me and I would not choose, which I think is a really, you mentioned, choice. Mm-hmm. I learned to recognize the real me. I learned that the script is just thoughts based on incorrect beliefs and that they are not true.
Distorted
and I
thinking.
learned that if I'm not choosing my experience, what's that?
I said distorted thinking. Yeah.
Distorted thinking, exactly. Yeah. There we go again. Mm-hmm. I learned that if I'm not choosing my experiences, my actions, and my feelings, the script will choose for me. And that is so powerful. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because
again, we talk about it. It's like
I was just going to say real quick. I was like, I've referred to my depression as my autopilot to some people. And I think that kind of fits the same point, basically.
That's it.
Because if I don't do something, the autopilot will take over and I'll just, function, but not really do what I want to do.
Yeah. And that's the part that there's this reading in this Daily Reflections book I love where it talks about that I am the master of my domain. It's my prerogative to act appropriately. And I bring it up all the time because it's really about choosing. And it's not about saying that I get to control everything around me. My domain is within me. That's it. Yeah. And I am the master of that, meaning I have a choice over how I want to experience what goes on around me and how I react. And that the real goal here is to learn how to how amazingly powerful that is, and I've brought it up before and I bring it up again, is how amazingly powerful would it be that no matter what the situation was, that you could just instantly see it right in front of you for what it is, and take a course of action where you will walk away feeling good.
Right? It is amazing when you get those moments.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I get moments of that.
I have a lifetime of taking action where I feel bad.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Or you felt like you couldn't control or make that decision. Like you felt like it was made for you. You know? Mm-hmm.
I regret what I did. I regret what I said. Again, making it's apologies. Yeah. Yeah, it's so like in my life today, I don't go around apologizing to people all the time.
Yeah.
As much as I used to.
Right.
But one of the things is like, okay, so that's all fine and dandy. How do you get to that point? How do you get to that point where, you don't have autopilot going on? This person says that I learned that it's not necessary to listen to, analyze, or try to change the script. All I need to do is recognize when it is the script talking and not me, and not believe it and not act on it. So I learned this not from talking about myself, but from witnessing other people and the script in their heads. Because guess what? The script told them they were broken too and useless, and they always get it wrong, and they are fat and they're ugly and they're not good enough and they're not loved, and on and on. We are literally reading from the same script. Since returning from the course, practice stayed with me and grown. After over 30 years of listening to the script for every month I spend not believing it, I get to know me more and ignore the script more easily. So how can we all take steps to turn away from the script and tune into our true selves? So first off, you have to recognize the script and be open to the possibility that what it's saying isn't true.
Right.
And that's one of the hardest things.
Yep. And if you
I know for myself.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, if you want to hear more on that, go back to the episode that's titled Distorted Thinking, I believe it is, the first one, where I talk about when I first was given the Distorted Thinking sheet and how I applied that, like saw it in so many other people, which allowed me to also see it in myself. Because I'm like, oh, I do that. So. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
That was a great, that was my thing too. The first time I read that thing, I was like, wow,
Yeah.
But there's nothing, it's one thing to read a sentence on a page. It's another thing to see it happening in front of you. And then here's the greatest thing is to recognize that it might not, to recognize that I might have that same behavior as well is huge.
Yeah.
Because that's that first step of thinking like, I'm not like that. Because what I was going to say is for me, alcoholism did this thing where I couldn't tell what was true and what was false any longer.
Sure.
And, my friends, I know you guys have talked about it too, where your mental is out to get you and is telling you something. And you can't tell whether it's the truth or whether it's false.
Yep.
And I love that the next line is, in fact, make it your job to discredit the script to prove what it's saying to be fake news. Fake news.
Yep.
So
well,
remember that time
kind of goes.
you were dying.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. What are you going to say?
I was going to say this is kind of like when I was in therapy, when she was trying to help me kind of be able to, go from the way I was thinking, which I thought was logical, to getting back to actual logical thinking and factual thinking more so than logical. You know, recognizing what is and what isn't. And that's where we did the like play it out scenarios, because when you play that stuff out, then it's like, oh, wait a minute. Like that's not what's going on here at all, you know? And so, but that's like you said before, that's a really hard thing to apply to yourself, because it really is pointing a finger at yourself and going, this needs to change, or this isn't right. It's hard to do that when you have depression, because you're already so self-critical that you have to be careful, you know, that you essentially aren't distorting your distorted thinking.
Well, like what you just said is such a, I hear the difference between logical thinking and factual thinking. That's huge.
Yeah.
Because I had a lot of logical thought process when I was not in my right mind. I wasn't well, but I had plenty of logic, quote unquote, to back it up. It wasn't factual.
Right. It was distorted logic.
That's
yeah.
It was.
Yep. That's why I changed it when I said it to factual. Yeah.
I love that phrase. That's one that's worth, you know, sticking on a stick and putting up in front of me. You know, your logic isn't necessarily factual.
Right.
You know?
And it's not, because, you know, like me, I have a huge fear of, you know, car accidents. And I get into a car and I'm immediately nervous. Like, doesn't matter who's driving, whatever. It doesn't matter if we're going 2 minutes up the road. I still feel, anxious. And, in my head, I'm looking for a car accident. I'm looking for what's going to happen to cause an accident. Right. And, you know, my therapist was like, but instead you should be looking around going, basically, am I safe? Am I in immediate danger? You look around and go, no, you're assuming you're in danger. It's not fact. And you might go, well, I'm preparing. There's your logic for acting that way. And it's like,
that's it.
No, you're fine. Yes, it could happen, you know, but it's not happening. So it kind of doesn't matter, you know, like, I mean, it does, but you know what I'm saying? It's like, be here. Don't be in the future. Yeah. Be here. And now you're okay.
Autopilot talking.
Yep, exactly.
Because the autopilot is, I mean, in a lot of ways, you can think of this, the autopilot is your instinct, and instinct is there to save us.
Yeah.
And instinct uses imagination, because we talked about this on another episode where I brought up the getting on a plane thing, and how, you know, our imagination is part of you're walking through the woods and you hear a noise behind you, and your imagination says that might be a bear. It's there to protect us. It's something about, it's an instinctual thing. However, in this case, it's distorted. And so we are, you know, our instinct is looking for all the bad things that could happen and all the negatives, because we're not in the moment. We're not alert. We're not paying attention, because if we pay attention, we could actually disregard that. We could sit there and say, okay, I'm not in the woods by myself. I'm at a concert. Yeah. It's not a bear behind me. That's probably somebody else going to take a leak.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the thing is the difference in the thinking is literally this, is if you're thinking, with your, you know, autopilot script, whatever you want to call it, and you hear a noise and you're in the woods, you go, that's a bear. If you can apply logic to it, or fact, I should say, you go, that might be a bear. Like, and then the next step from there is you go, it's not a bear, you know, like, because when you go, that is a bear, you immediately act as though it's a bear. And that's not how, I mean, don't get me wrong. If it is a bear, that's exactly how you want to act. But, but most of the time it wouldn't be. Like you said, you're at a concert, somebody just taking a leak or something, or two people who went off for some, you know, hugging. And,
Or you happen to be in a bear-proof nature preserve.
Yeah. Yeah, you're at the zoo.
Which the sign said, you're at the zoo. Yeah. They're behind cages. You're not.
Yeah. That bear's going to get me. You know, although it is funny though, cause like, you know, if you're seeing like gorillas or whatever, they have the big glass, you know, and if they charge you, I mean, I've seen so many people, whether it's on TV or in life, like, you know, flinch or almost fall down because
they react.
Yeah. Yep. And that's your instinct. That's what's supposed to happen. You're supposed to, you know, try to save yourself, you know?
Yep.
And in that case, I don't think, I mean, even though factually you go, the chance of that thing getting me is minute, but it's still, that's a good instinct to have. You know, if something's coming at you, it's a good instinct to be able to, whether it's flinch or move, you know, so that you can protect yourself.
Yep. So one of the things that she talks about is, and I like the phrasing on this, of this idea, be open to the possibility that what the script is saying is not true. Mm-hmm. And I like this idea of saying be open to the possibility. Mm-hmm. That's a baby step right there.
True.
It's not saying instantly say it's not true. No. Open yourself up to just the thought process, which allows you to now apply a little bit of logic to a situation that and combat some of that imagination and to work through it. Like these ideas of, you know, remember the time that the script said you were dying because you were having a panic attack.
Yeah.
But it wasn't true. You weren't dying. You were just having a panic attack. Mm-hmm. What about the time that it said you couldn't do a thing, but then you did it? Yep, it was lying. And that's one of the things that for me, I really relate to with addiction and alcoholism is so many people have a life event occur, and rather than getting through it sober, they instantly drink because the script says you can't get through this. Mm-hmm. I can't get through this without a drink.
Yeah.
But until you do, you won't have any evidence that you can.
Well, yeah, until you do, it's right. You can't get through it without a drink if you never do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So be open to the possibility that, well, maybe I can get through this.
Yeah.
You know, maybe I can get through this day. You know, the time that you felt that you were completely worthless and nobody would hire you, but you got a job. Mm-hmm. And think about those times if when you can recognize that, then you'll start seeing where it happens more and more often. You can look back. I was like, oh yeah, I was fearful that this was going to happen, but it didn't. Yeah. And start looking for those positives. And again, that'll open up the possibility that what the script is saying is not true.
Right. And the thing is too, it's like, it isn't like you don't even have to go, oh, well, I don't, you know, like I immediately go positive thinking. It's just a matter of you don't immediately assume that it's negative. And like you said, you leave the possibility open that it is a positive experience about to happen, you know, because the way like I was is that, nope, that's not going to happen. You know, like it's
never going to happen.
Yeah. If I applied for a job, be like, you know, of course they're not going to hire me, you know, and really what I'm doing is I'm telling myself this for a couple reasons. One is because of the flawed thinking of, oh, I'm just softening the blow if it does happen, which doesn't really work. You know, and then of course the other is because, you know, depression and it wants you to be alone and hate yourself. That's, you know, that's what it does.
Yeah. And you're setting up your own confirmation bias for that you are worthless and you are this, that you're literally sitting when something doesn't go right, you're just piling on the affirmations, the negative.
See, I knew it. I told you.
Of your thought. See, I knew it. I knew it wasn't going to work. I knew it wasn't going to work. And what happens, you do that so often, there is no more a possibility that it cannot be true. When that one does come and it defies all the rest of it, Well, you look at the mountain of negative outcomes that you've piled up against that one little possibility. And that little possibility doesn't have a chance against that mountain.
Right.
And it's like, you change the scale.
Mm-hmm.
And then secondly, it says, remember that you are not the script. So think of the script as a physical book. It has many chapters documenting every mistake we've ever made, all the bad things that could or have happened, detailing how we should have behaved, how we should think, how we should feel about every situation under the sun. The script also has an audio version, which is what we can hear in our heads every day, but it is not us. It is just the script being read to us. Mm-hmm. If the script says you are useless, this is not true nor relevant. It is just the script's opinion. Mentally put down the script and accept that although we can't change what's in it or get rid of it, we don't need to read it all day long, and we certainly don't need to act upon what it says.
Yeah.
I like that phrasing of like, the script is an opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you, there's a lot of people's opinions that I don't listen to.
Amen. Yeah. Yep.
I think it's you got to reframe that the voices in your head is just another one of those people in your life that it's like, I don't listen to this guy.
Yeah, right. It's true. And it's very, very difficult to not do that because, it's in your own head.
Yeah.
At least like
if it's your voice.
Yeah, if a coworker's like, hey, you're terrible, you're worthless, blah, 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 you can just avoid the coworker or get a different job. Yeah. You can't so much get a different brain. You can work on retraining yourself and, like we're talking here, like not listening to those things, but you can't just go, you know what? And quit. You're still going to have those. Yep. If anything, that would just feed it. So it is difficult when like your worst enemy is in your own head,
That's it. Yeah. And if you can look at it as nothing more than a book, a manuscript, a little piece of paper that you can in your head, tear it up, throw it in the garbage, tear it up. This doesn't have any say in this moment. This opinion is not needed. I didn't ask for it. So I don't need to listen to it.
Yeah. And this is why also it's important to celebrate your wins when you do push into your anxieties or whatever, or negative thoughts, and you prove those thoughts wrong. You need to bank those, because then when those thoughts pop back up, you go, no, I did that. I know I can do this. You're not right.
Yep. And then this is like, lastly, choose. Don't let the script sit in the driver's seat. And this goes into what we already talked about. The script lives in our reptilian brain and is much faster at responding than our conscious brain. And this goes back to that idea of instinct. If we don't consciously choose thoughts, feelings, and actions, the script will jump in and choose for us. Start with small things. What would I choose to eat? What activities do I love? Be mindful of what you say. Cut off the script and choose to think of something else. Get out of bed at the time you plan to. Choose not to engage in arguments. Choose to take a bath or read a book. I'll tell you that. Choose not to engage in arguments. That has been one of my small little victories that I love where I mean, I have not, those are things that I've held on to for a long time. When something came up where it was like, wow, this is like just begging for me to open my big trap and just put my foot right. I just stayed quiet.
Yeah.
And it felt so good.
Yep. That's why I told you, remember I said a couple years ago, I decided to make that change when it comes to politics, because I found myself just getting into these arguments. And when you look back at them, it's like nobody's mind is changing here. We're just getting heated over something. It's like, all I can do is control me. I can't make other people's minds change, and also realistically, like, I don't need that. I don't need that negativity. I don't need that, anxiety that comes with it. I don't need all this stuff. So that was, and after doing that, and I was like, you know what? This is made, I mean, I still hate Facebook, but it's made Facebook better for me because I don't engage in those things. Mm-hmm. If I'm on YouTube, I don't read the comments. If I'm on, I rarely read the comments on things where I'm like, this is going to mostly be negative. because I'm very much like
Yeah.
you. I'm very much the type to be like, oh yeah, you're wrong and here's why,
Yeah.
and I'm just the person to tell you. Even though, much like, doesn't need to be said now. Yeah. We'll go right back to that.
And that's one of the tips here is every small choice moves us away from the script and strengthens our choosing muscle.
Yep.
And it is start with some small things. If there's something that happens on a daily basis, it's a tiny little thing that you can make a choice and move away from the script. Try it. Try doing some small conscious choice with how you react to a person, a thing, a place, a situation, and start, strengthening those muscles. And this article goes on to give 10 various tips and stuff. I'm not going to go into them all, but there's a couple at the end that I really liked. And one of them is get competitive, but not angry. Try to avoid getting angry with the script since it's only trying to help, although ineffectively. Instead, develop a healthy competition with it. If the script thinks you're too lazy to go for a walk, do it. If the script thinks you're too scared to do something you'd love to do it anyway. If the script thinks you should say no to an amazing opportunity, ignore it. If the script wants you to lose it with your partner, choose not to. And then thank the script for its input, but remind it that your real self has everything it needs to deal with it without its help. And I love that.
Yeah.
It's like, I like this idea. This is the idea that we don't beat ourselves up. We don't have to get angry with ourselves, but we can have a little competition. Because competition allows you to lose maybe one race, but win the next one.
Yeah.
Competition allows us to get knocked down, but get back up again because we're competing. And I like that idea of it's like this is kind of, I know it's what it took for me to get past a lot of my negative thinking and a lot of my distorted thinking was to slowly make changes. And it was in a way a little bit of a competition. I set a goal for myself. Can I leave my ego out of a particular conversation? Can I, let go of this idea? Like, I feel like my opinion needs to be heard.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Can I just listen? All these little things. Okay. Well, hey, wow, I got through it. Can I be, I'll tell you one that I guarantee that everybody listening can work on tomorrow. We all say something sarcastic. I guarantee all of us will have a moment tomorrow where a sarcastic thing pops into your head. Don't say it.
Yeah.
Just leave it. Try it. Because I get them all day.
Yeah.
I mean,
Me too.
If you're out with the public, you have lots of opportunity to make a sarcastic remark.
Yep.
Try to leave one off. Just leave one off the table tomorrow and see how it feels.
Right.
And then the last point on here that I really liked was keep asking, is this true? Would I choose this?
I really like this one.
I like this too, because if the script is telling you something negative, ask yourself, would I choose this negativity?
Exactly.
Is basically what it's saying. Yep. That lays it out right there.
A lot of us with depression, or I'm sure like with you, it's like you go back to the before time, like before you were miserable or whatever, and it's like, would that you have chosen these things? Yeah. Like if that's the you want to try to get back to, would that you have picked these things? And of course that only works if you were a more positive person at one point. Yeah. But that's what I've done various times. And I mean, not to be dark or anything, but that's also something I've kind of told people when, if, excuse me, if they're really depressed and kind of thinking suicidal stuff is this what do you really want to die? Like I've heard like my therapist asks me that one time because I was, remember when I was telling her I was having some really, really bad thoughts for a while there, and she was like, well, do you want to die? And I was like, no, and that's the thing. It's like me, Brian, I don't want to die. The depression might want me to give in, but I don't want that. And, and it, like I said, not to be, dark about it, but that's just a really very stark example of what this is here, is if it's not something you truly want, then, choose differently. Like it says, ignore the script and do what you want to do or have to do, need to do, however you want to word it,
Yeah. That's my trade-off for not drinking really revolves around this idea of, if I look at the lousy things that have happened as a result of me, not, basically losing control, would I choose that? No, I wouldn't.
Right? It's like, how many of us would choose misery on, if all things were even and you were, air quote normal, how many people would choose to be miserable? Yeah. Most, I would hope nobody, but and that's the thing is that's what you're trying to change is you don't, when it's like, hey, you should be miserable, be like, no, I don't want to be miserable. And I'm going to do everything I can to not be miserable,
Yeah. That idea, I was always like, this idea is like, well, if I hadn't had that 13th shot, well, it wasn't the 13th, it was the first.
Yeah. Yeah, accurate.
That's the truth.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, there's one more of these I want to talk about too, but if you have more to say, go for it.
What's that?
Do you have more on that one or?
No. Go ahead.
Okay. The other one I wanted to talk to, we've kind of talked about this before, but I just kind of like the way this one was written was, be mindful of your language. And we've talked plenty of times on here about choosing your words carefully and whatever, but most of the time it's more toward other people. With this, it's still toward other people, but it's one of the things that I started doing a long time ago and I noticed a big difference, which is the very bottom of it says, if someone asks you how you are and you immediately jump in with tired or stressed, this is what you will believe and therefore how you will feel. If you moan about your partner or say critical things to them, you're repeatedly telling yourself that your partner isn't good enough. How do you think this affects how you feel and act toward them and the response you get in return? Now, the way it was for me is anytime somebody would say, how are you? I would say, or not bad, right? And I got to thinking about it and I was like, not bad is still a negative answer. Because if you're not bad, you're what? Most people would say good, So it's like, just say good, or well, if we're gonna, but,
get technical.
Yeah, but just don't use the negative term, even if you're not great, fine, don't say great, say, I'm doing okay.
Yep.
Even okay is like, borderline for me. So I try really hard not to say that. I try to say good now. And it makes a really big difference in, first of all, how other people perceive you. Because if you're the person who always is like, like that, oh, I'm stressed, I'm tired, I'm this, I'm that, and that, they're not going to ask you as often, probably, because you're Debbie Downer at that point, So, don't get me wrong, if that's the truth, by all means, tell the truth. But, like I said, if you're not bad, then you could just as easily say good and be accurate. Like I said, maybe you're not great, but you could say good or, something in that effect. And, I still fall into the traps of the other, but I try really hard not to anymore. And just those little words, even not just to other people, but just how you word something. Like if you're writing in a journal, this is a great exercise. If you're writing in your journal, go back through it like the next day and look for negative terms. Like see how many times you kind of put a negative connotation on something, especially if it doesn't deserve it. You know, like if, you know, something terrible happens, then yeah, it deserves it. But if it's simply because you're mad that Chick-fil-A is closed on Sundays, that's, you know, like, that's a different story. But these little changes, kind of like we talked earlier, just those little changes here and there, just that little kind of stuff. Or like Heno said, instead of throwing that sarcasm at somebody, just hold it back occasionally. Those little changes shift your mind from being critical and negative a little more toward being, you know, positive and willing.
Yeah, I like that. The one thing that the whole, you know, when someone asks how are you, and especially at work, you know, we're in a working environment, so I'm walking past somebody, and it's always like, "How are you today?" And I'd say, "You know, I'm well. How are you?" Mm-hmm. And I just started saying that as just a standard thing, and it was interesting. The more I said it, the more I believed it. It's like, I'm well. And then if somebody asks, "How's your day?" Sometimes I'll be silly and just say, "Well, it doesn't suck."
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And then guess what happens? We laugh. And laughter is good.
Yes.
And that's why, you know, one of the tips on here is about laughing. Mm-hmm. Another one is about exercise. They're all the little things that we talk about all the time, mm-hmm. Sharing and exploring, bringing music in, all these things. So, you know, take a look at this article. I thought it was really good. And it just kind of good made me aware of some things that I still need to work on.
There's one more thing on here that I think is something that can really help this, which is, and I don't want to go into the whole, like, you know, cut toxic people out of your life diatribe, but find people who have, like, if you're wanting to move forward and be, make progress in your life, you want to accomplish things, you want to whatever, find people who are going the same way on the road as you.
That's so true.
And I'm not saying don't have anyone critical in your life, because, you know, we do all kind of need that one person that's like, no. You know, like you're not being, you know, this is a bad idea, you know. But that will make a huge difference. I've said on here before, like talking to you, Heno, was a big difference for me. And even before you were on the show and we were really, you know, friends, listening to you on Angela's Awesome podcast, just hearing how you had looked at things and how you had changed from looking at those things really kind of helped me go, like I told you before, it's like, I was like, that's me, or that's me now, what you know, and it's like, that's where I want to be. And it's like, well, this worked for him. I'm going to try that. And a lot of that stuff has worked, you know, and just the mindset, you and I, you know, as we talk to each other, we tend to kind of, you know, frame things differently because, you know, we're two different people. Our brains work differently. So, you know, and it's nice, you know, rather than me going, you know, hey, I think I'm going to do this. And you going, really? I don't know about that, you know, or just making fun of it or whatever, you know, you try, you know, you're encouraging or, you know, if you truly think it's a bad idea, I would assume would be like, you know, so, you know, but that makes a big difference. And over the last few years, especially, like anybody that I saw as kind of a negative person, or again, it's one of those things like, you know, the best test I've ever known is the whole tell your friends something good happened to you and see their reaction. That will tell you all you need to know about whether or not they need to be your friend anymore. You know, if they're excited for you, that's the right step, or a step the right way. If they're jealous or immediately have to tell you about their achievement, then it's maybe somebody you want to take a look at. Yeah. Because it's like, that's the kind of person who will run with you on the road, but they'll shove you down right before the finish line. You know?
And I really think like listening to podcasts has been the one place where I've put a lot of this into practice with that, learning how to, you know, if I listen to somebody and they're constantly negative, I can't listen to them.
I can't either.
I mean, I just can't. If you know, it's one thing to just riff on some, you know, things that happen to us.
Yeah.
But it's another thing when every single thing gets a sarcastic response.
Yep.
It's a negative response, something like that. After a while, I'm like, okay, I can't listen to you anymore. And it's it's a way to learn to figure out who are those people that maybe you don't necessarily need to have in your life supporting you.
Yeah.
They might be encouraging your script.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny because you mentioned that, because I know at one point, I told you about a podcast I was listening to and was like, I had to turn it off. I'm like, it was just all negative. I'm like, and I'm sitting there going, was I that bad? Was that me? You know, like immediately, like I looked inside, was like, oh, I hope I wasn't that bad, you know? And if I was, hopefully I've made changes in that, you know what I mean? But it's like, oh man, it's like I can't do that. I can't be around somebody who's just all negative anymore. It's such a, energy suck that I can't do it anymore.
Really is.
You know, it's like I have limited energy as it is, you know, because of my own fights, you know? So,
yeah. Cause you imagine you're already fighting in your head and now it's outside of you too.
yeah. 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 It's like, it's pouring rain outside and you're like, oh, I'll go inside. And they're like, you know, all your pipes have burst and there's water everywhere. You're like, well, just bad everywhere. And that's, you know, yeah, I just try really hard not to put myself in situations where it's just going to be negative. Cause I just honestly, I don't even have a tolerance for it anymore. You know, even when I catch myself doing it at times, I get mad at myself for doing it, you know? So, you know, hopefully.
It's also a good way, you know, all these things is for what, like one thing I noticed is the more I worked on the narrative in my head, my script, the more I was able to kind of discern am I in a good place today or am I in a bad place today?
Mm-hmm.
If generally I am glass half full and suddenly I'm being flooded with a lot of glass half, I know there's something not right.
Yeah.
And I can work on it.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason I know that is because the truth is most of my days I'm glass half full.
Yeah.
And that's how it is today. And if I'm not in that place, then I need to take a look at it. Is it just a day? And it's just, you know, sometimes you're just in a funk and I know that tomorrow will be better. And I just need to make sure that, you know, I avoid situations where I could react poorly,
mm-hmm.
you know, or inappropriately. Or maybe there is something and there's some action I need to take or that kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's why these little things are worth it to like make tiny little positive steps, and it will help you learn what is the true you versus what's the script talking to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cause I mean, I even, I read, I don't remember where what I read it in. But I remember I read somebody talking about one of the things they do to kind of help get the negative thoughts out of their head is like they'll sit down and go, okay, I want to do this. Like I want to go back to school, right? Let's say that. So you sit down and you write down all the, you do the plus minus list basically, but instead of it just being plus minus, you do what are my fears and what am I excited about? And then you try to, essentially you look at ways to, essentially, realistically, you're looking for ways to dispel the anxiety. Not to talk yourself into or out of something, but it's more the idea that you're just trying to go, okay, what of this is fact? Let's eliminate everything else. And now let's look at it again. Let's look at just the fact stuff. And then, let's make a decision. And I thought that was kind of an interesting idea because I've done that a couple of times since. And actually my therapist told me about doing that with things that you're anxious about or negative thoughts, fears, however you want to word it, writing a hierarchy down basically, and working on those things. Like I'm afraid of riding in a car. We've talked about like micro, what was it called? Micro goals basically, where it's like, can I go sit in a car and just be comfortable? Can I back a car out of a driveway? Can I go around the block? Just little step, all the way through it. So, whatever it takes for this to work and to help you, that's, so I know some of it sounds ridiculous.
That's it.
But as you've said countless times on here too, try it because you can always have your misery back.
Yep. We give you a misery back guarantee.
100%. Yep. I'll even give you more back if you want it, like.
I'm happy to dish some out.
I'll give you.
You want to hear my script in my head
Yeah.
out loud? I'll give it to you.
Yep. Like, I'll give you all that criticism or the sarcasm I've been saving up.
Yeah, I've just been storing.
Absolutely free.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. Well, hopefully
Cool.
this helps some people. I know there's some stuff in here that it's fun sometimes for me when we talk about something like this that, you know, we've talked about a lot of these things at various points. I always like to kind of headline something though that it's like, I know we've talked about things many times, but it's like, let's focus on it this time instead of it just being part of a conversation, you know? And also because it reminds me to look at that stuff again, you know? And if nothing else, that's the reason why I'm like, yeah, we should do that, because it's like, you know, now it'll remind me to be aware of this for a little while again, you know, because it's easy to get complacent.
Exactly. Yep.
You know?
That's it.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah. All right. Well, I think we got ourselves a show. What do you think?
Yeah.
Oh,
I agree.
All right. Well, I guess I should pull up this thing here. If you would like to continue the conversation, you can contact the show at thecrazylifepodcast.weebly.com. It's our website. Our email is thecrazylifepodcast@outlook.com. The show Twitter is at thecrazylifepod, where I post when new episodes go up. Jen can be found at Jen's Crazy Life, or Dits with D Tits. Or and you can check out her other podcast, Shake the Sheets, at shakethesheets.com. Heno, how about you, sir?
You can find me on Twitter at Ida Heno. Find me on Facebook, Heno Heiter. You can always message me on either location. And we are back in doing Gotham Lights and Orville Lights. So we talk about the television show Gotham and the Orville with my friend Stephanie. So if you're interested in any of those shows, check out our podcast. You can find it on all the usual places.
Mm-hmm. And you can find them on Twitter at Gotham Lights. You can find me at Stunami on Twitter. You can find my other podcast, Salty Language, at salty_language or at saltylanguage.com. Show is not safe for work, so, you know, be careful where you listen to it. You can find this show's Facebook group over at facebook.com/group/crazylifepodcast. And I think that's, we're part of, the Tangentbound Network, which can be found at tangentboundnetwork.com, and we're also part of Danger Entertainment, which can be found at dangerentertainment.net. And I mean, you know, the show that's being promoted by our network this month, I mean, I can't recommend it enough. It's Salty Language because it's my show. So yeah, it's, you know, please reach out for help if you need it. Or if, you know, even if you like have questions about things, you know, that Heno and I have gone through, like how we've talked about how we're at a certain point. If you know, like if you look at us the way I looked at him, which is, you know, that's where I want to get, you know, feel free to contact us. We're both more than willing to talk about
Definitely.
stuff. Yeah. We love the sound of our own voices. So, no, I'm kidding. Do you know who we are? But yeah, please reach out for help if you need it. I know it's difficult. It took me a long time to do it, but, please, you know, go get the estimate, at least just see what's going on, see if you need, you know, or what's recommended or what have you. You know what? I forgot. There's one more thing I wanted to talk about really quick, which was the last couple weeks I've been talking about Bell Let's Talk Day.
Yes.
And that's now passed. And, where is the number here? Shoot, I had it right there. Okay. Their talks, text, and social media interactions on that day this year reached 145,442,699. That's between Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat, which grew, up 13% from last year, which is awesome.
Wow.
Yeah. Where's the money's at? There we go. Bell's donation of 5 cents per interaction means another $7,272,000 wait, that's not right. $7,272,134.95 donated this year, which brings Bell's total funding commitment over the years of this thing to over $100 million. And with this year's interactions and whatnot, there's been over 1 billion interactions over the years. Which means retweets, tweets, sharing on Facebook, just anyone using the hashtag or the filter on Snapchat or whatever. So, anyone who did it, thank you.
Wow.
I'll mention it again next year because I love the fact that this big company has all this money and they're just like, hey, let's do something. I mean, yeah, they get a ton of advertisement out of it, but I don't care. Cause in the end, it's doing something pretty good. So I'm fine with it. I just wish they had something like this in the US,
Yeah.
But whatever. I have no problems trying to help anybody who can get, funding for mental health stuff.
Yeah.
So good on them. And, like I said, thanks to anyone who did that. And, please continue to do so in the coming years. And then I guess the last thing is, be nice to people, I mean, even if it's, just what Heno said, which was, just keep one sarcastic comment to yourself, or just be a little nicer to somebody at the, customer service desk or something, or just, whenever you can practice kindness, including to yourself. That's another really good way to get over the negative script in your head is by being nice to yourself, because it's the total opposite of what, these scripts usually want you to do. So, yeah. So, all right. So, Heno, you want to take us out of here?
Yeah.